Do you remember when the simplest things could capture your fascination? A flickering shadow, the pattern of a leaf, a sunspot in the shape of a heart on a dusty path. Long past times spent smiling in an age of innocence that now we know was so fleeting and once gone is so hard to recapture. Without the pure joy of a playful stoat. Swoon! It's time for Springwatch. Hello and welcome to Nightjar Watch 2022, coming to you live from Wild Ken Nightjar. Very sadly, it's our penultimate show, but I can promise you some great things tonight.
no
yes,
prizes
the world's
for guessing.
best bird's nest at this point in time, Kung Fu fighting harriers, and if you're lucky a bit later, and I'm not feeling quite so bashful, I might show you my osmetrium.
I look forward to that. It's been a gorgeous day here, and as you can see, it's a lovely evening. We're down on the marsh. We've got our long lens cameraman out. Let's see what he's capturing for us on the marshlands. Let's have a look. There we go. Oh, look. Shelduck chicks. Do you know what? I reckon they're the ones that we've been following. All of them have survived, and they've successfully made their way to the pond. What else have we got? We're going, oh my goodness, there's a lot of them, isn't there? I don't think our shelduck had that many. I think it was 9.
No, they had 10.
Was it 10?
They had 10.
How many are there? Come on, let's go back. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, let's pan back onto the others. Okay.
4,
so that's 3,
5,
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's our shelduck with all of those chicks surviving a couple of weeks.
Old romantic.
Isn't that just a brilliant story? Fits really well with our theme, which is the restorative power of nature. And this has been such a brilliant place to come, Wild Ken Hill, where they're literally restoring nature to the landscape by stepping back and letting nature thrive. And we've certainly seen the benefits of that over the last 3 weeks. Wake up early on a clear morning and you'll be treated to a glorious sunrise here at Wild Ken Hill. And as the sun dries the webs and dew, our barn owls end their nightly hunts. The meadows have exploded to a carpet of crimson, beautifully hiding the population of hares that call Wild Ken Hill their home. A white admirable butterfly, an exciting and rare find, distinct by its white V pattern set on an ebony wing. Green woodpecker, pecking away for ants, watched by a nosy jackdaw. Kites soar above as a little owl takes a peek. Plenty of chatter below, wary of a hunting red kite. A busy, noisy place full of waders and waterbirds, all starting their day. The ultimate hunter of the marshlands, the marsh harrier, descends. And our young stoat, oblivious to all of it, simply enjoys life.
I say.
Well, do you know, I was actually trying to create a nice bit of calm before the explosion of excitement that I know is coming.
That's very eloquent, and I'd imagine...
Did it move you?
Lots of people were very emotional. But of course, that's going to fade rapidly into the distance now. As we move to the highlight of tonight's show right at the top, it's, of course, Nightjar time. What was happening since last night when we left them? Well, this is it. Cross your legs, brace yourselves, because this is the best. And we're in hard, with a Gula fluttering nightjar, complete with rictal bristles. Oh, my goodness me. Oh, it's so good, isn't it? Obviously, evening came. She bubbled away and came off of the nest. The male, you just saw him there, flicking in, took over the duties, or a tail waggle, like something reminiscent of the Moulin Rouge. He settled down to protect those 2 eggs. They've been incubated for 18 days, diligently hidden by the cryptic form of the nightjar. This morning, the sun came up, she was fidgety. What could be happening? Oh my goodness me. Oh my goodness me. Oh, I mean, it's capital C cute, isn't it? I'm not afraid to use the word. It's absolutely divine. Yes, one of the eggs hatched, and immediately it dried. We got a glimpse of that young chick. Oh, it shuffles back beneath the cleft in her patterned bosom. Of course, the bright white egg that she's been hiding for 18 days is now very obvious to any aerial predator. So she tries to flick it out of sight, fails, I have to say, rather miserably, and in frustration throws a stick at it. But look, a final view, a little beak peeping. Here comes the eye. Oh yes, there's the mouth, wait for it. Let's have a yawn. Oh yes, look at the massive gape of the young bird. Oh, okay, she shifts around, one of the eggs comes out from underneath her, but I'm pleased to say that it was only a matter of time before she got that back underneath her wing and continued to incubate the egg. Oh, that was sensational.
Oh, really? Let's have a look at her live and see what's happening with this amazing bird.
Oh,
the egg's still there.
Oh, so brilliantly still, so brilliantly static. When normally do you look at birds doing absolutely nothing and feel so good about it?
Not very often, Chris, I have to say. And that really is a bird that you just really enjoy just watching it and looking at the detail.
The single egg is still there, but look, we're holding back because I have to tell you that about an hour ago, something even more spectacular happened, and you know what it is, don't you? Yes, more fidgeting, flicking away a bit of eggshell. And look again, you have to look very closely here. There's one youngster there fidgeting around that you can see. Look, 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 look. Oh, that's the one that hatched this morning. It's nice and fluffy. But keep your eyes peeled just by her wing. Look, a little damp youngster. A damp nightjar. Oh, moist. Freshly moist out of the egg.
Oh, and such a tease, just giving us a little glimpse. No, that is incredibly
I mean, it's
special.
gone down a storm. I've got to say, last night, after the programme finished, our server crashed. So many people had logged on to look at the nightjar's nest, it crashed, which was really disappointing to many. I had Hanks on the phone, bitterly angry that he couldn't look at our nightjars on Springwatch.
What, Tom? Was that Tom?
Tommy, yeah. Tommy.
But just to put it in context, I mean, it's incredibly rare, isn't it, in this country, to be able to see those chicks?
It is. I mean, they're so well hidden that even if you're walking in an area where nightjars are nesting, you're unlikely to see them, obviously, and you have to pass very close to them to disturb them. They're confident in their camouflage. They sit tight, as we say. And if you do disturb them, then obviously you've got to get out of the way pretty quickly. So to be able to witness a nest in close-up like that and actually see the chicks hatching is extraordinary. It's what you pay your licence fee for.
And the adult bird is actually much smaller than you might expect. I mean, that's a life-size cutout of the adult bird, and much lighter than you'd expect too. I mean, 80 grams.
80 grams. You're going to tell me what that is in citrus fruit, aren't you?
Funny you should say that, because I am. It's actually the weight of a large lime. I know you're laughing, but we all get a sense now that that's really light.
We don't get a sense. How many of us? I mean, it's not an evening that I don't spend at home in the kitchen weighing a large lime.
Well, like
darling, pass me a large lime, will you? How much is that? Oh, it's 80 grams. Wow.
Not with the old gin and tonic with a bit of lime in it. But anyway, I think you get the point. It's much smaller than you'd imagine and much lighter than you'd imagine, but incredibly exciting. And it's just amazing, isn't it, that they've kept those chicks for the penultimate show. Oh. Come on, YOLO, contain your excitement.
I'll try, Michaela. I'll try. I'll do my very utmost. But no, I have to say that is a very, very cool bird. Fair play. Now, cast your minds back to Winter Watch and our very last day here on Mull, and it was absolute pandemonium. If I remember rightly, we had, 9 white-tailed eagles and 3 otters on one lump of rock, and we also had a loggerhead turtle washed ashore on a beach on the island of Iona. It was in a bad way, to be honest, but it was picked up, it was taken to the Mull Aquarium, where it was kept overnight, it was assessed, it was deemed strong enough to be taken to the mainland and to the Loch Lomond Sea Life Centre. It was dehydrated, it was emaciated, and it was cold, so they had to tackle that. So they warmed it up slowly. If you speed this up, you're in danger of killing the animal. So that took a lot of time, but they nurtured it back to health. It doubled in weight eventually from 2 kilos to 4.37. Then, 2 weeks ago, it was moved on to the Scarborough Sea Life Centre, where the care continues, and they've now even identified somewhere to release it back into the wild. Where is that? Well, Gran Canaria. So Chris and Michaela, you stay in Norfolk. I've already booked my ticket to Gran Canaria. But hats off to everybody involved, because I must confess, when I first saw those photos of it washed up, I didn't think it was going to survive, but it has done. Now, we still don't know what sex it is. It's about 5 years old, and believe it or not, loggerhead turtles don't reach sexual maturity till they're about 30 years old. But it does have a name, and the name is Iona, after the island where it was first picked up, of course. So I can put my little turtle now on the Isle of Iona there. And just north of Iona, here, is the island of Staffa. And last week, I went out to meet some of the island's most famous residents, the puffins.
This is the reason why I come to Staffa. It's just to sit down quietly and really enjoy the puffins. And the good thing is, you know, you can sit on the edge of the path here and the puffins just come to you. You've got to keep far enough away from the burrows, of course, just underneath me here. But look at this. Bluebells, pignut, thrift, puffins. Doesn't get much better than that. Good news here is that the population is actually stable. It's estimated to be around 300 pairs, and it's good to know that, because you go further north, especially when you go to the north of Scotland, you go to Scandinavia, you go to Iceland, and we know that the puffin populations there have absolutely crashed, and believed to be connected to climate change and also overfishing of sand eels. But here they're doing all right. Coming right in close to land now. Such comical birds. And that beak, you know, it's just such a colourful beak. But that beak is a magnificent tool, really. It's like one of these knives that does everything. You know, it doesn't open a bottle of wine, but it'll do everything else for you, because they use it. You see them mutual preening when a bird arrives back. Its partner they'll preen each other. They use it for repair work or digging out the burrow. They use it for display, just sort of showing off, showing the beak like this as well. So it really is a multi-purpose tool. You'd think, wouldn't you, that me sat here and all these people and all the boats is causing disturbance to these birds, but the opposite is true, actually. If there are no people here, then the puffins are out on the sea, because they feel safer there. But once the visitors arrive, the puffins then come onto land, and you can see these are less than 2 meters away. And the reason is there are marauding great black-backed gulls around, and they will swallow these whole. But the people keep the gulls at bay, so the puffins feel safe. When the people leave, these puffins will go back down onto the sea. So the people are actually helping the puffins. Can't see any birds bringing in fish at the moment, but then I wouldn't expect to either, because the first eggs were laid in early May here, and they incubate for about 6 weeks. And for a puffin, it's quite a big egg. It's about 15% of the weight of the female, really. So it's a big egg for her to lay. So the first eggs should hatch in mid-June, and then it'll get really busy with the adult birds bringing back beakfuls of sand eels for the chick. I've just had a fantastic couple of hours now in the company of these wonderful puffins, and the great news is that they're doing really well here, and that means that these puffins will be here hopefully for future generations to enjoy too.
Stafford, I tell you, it's a great island. Whether you're into your natural history or your geology, it's well worth a visit. And a big thank you to Rachel, the warden from the National Trust for Scotland, who was a big help on that day. Well, from a dreich and damp Mull, it's time to go down to a sunny Newcastle where Megan is waiting for us.
I am basking in the sunshine over here in Newcastle, and I'm back in the allotment because, well, how could we not? It's such a beautiful sight here in Moorside allotment. Beautiful flowers all around me. I've got all the birds singing, and pollinators are so important in allotments. New research is coming out all the time about just how important allotments are in urban environments for our urban pollinators. Allotments are good for sustainable eating, for our own mental health, and also protecting our insects. But very sadly, insects aren't having a good time of it. There have been severe declines across the board. Everything from bees to wasps to butterflies to hoverflies. We're getting some serious declines that are incredibly concerning, and all you have to do is step out into your garden to experience them and see them for your very self. And the reason for it? Well, 97% of our flower-rich grasslands have been lost in England since the 1930s. And of course, they're so reliant upon that source of nectar and pollen and goodness that they need to go about during the springtime. But there's lots that we can do to help introduce pollinators back to our garden and back to our countryside. And one of the ways we can get involved is by doing this. Now, this was put in by Urban Green as well as the Northumberland Wildlife Trust. They're all over Newcastle, these signs, and if you look carefully, it says sold, like a house sign, below offer. Very good pun there, I have to admit. Now, these places are put on verges, they're put on roundabouts, they're put all over just to signify that an area has been left specifically for wildlife, allowed to be grown up and allow for wildlife to move on in. It's something you'll be familiar with from plant life, No Mow May, and this is a brilliant example of that. All of those native wildflowers there producing all that vital source of nectar. But of course, you can get involved on a national side of it as well. Bug Life have a national campaign where you can go out and register your interests and help get involved. All the details are on our website below. So if you fancy putting pollinators back into your life, as we all should, then please do look out for more information. Now, earlier on in the week, I got the brilliant opportunity to go and meet two very special residents, Nassim Bashir as well as Chris O'Connor, who take part in greening their local neighbourhood.
Chris is part of a community making the most of every available space.
Chris, look at this.
Yeah, this is my wildlife street garden. All kinds of hodgepodge of things, from native to buddleias and things like that.
And it's a whole row of disused tyres.
Tyres that have been fly-tipped in the street. I see ladybirds and I see bees. I see wasps, I see flies and spiders and all kinds of beetles and whatever else. Another key thing is the dead wood, and it's great to have the funguses and the lichens and the beetles.
And larvae, yeah. With what you're creating here, though, it really is a connection for wildlife, a corridor for wildlife, allowing it to move through your neighbourhood.
I like to encourage nature to come along and do its thing, and it doesn't take much encouragement.
Chris shares plants and tips with neighbours like Nassim, who's taken up vertical planting.
I know it's a small space, but I provide everything here for birds and, for bees and, for wildlife as well.
Do you see any wildlife come and visit?
Yeah, lots of bees here, spiders here, and the butterflies and lots of other stuff, and birds as well.
Which is wonderful, considering you live in the heart of the city, and yet it's there if you give it a home.
This apple tree is an example. It shows anything is possible in life. Doesn't matter where you live. If you're determined to do something, it's possible.
This is what I love about this, is that no matter how small an area you have, you can make an amazing oasis with it, and this is certainly a beautiful oasis. They're part of the initiative Greening Wingrove, and it's a whole community effort. Lots of people getting involved to share tricks and tips of how to increase biodiversity in your garden. And of course, it goes further than that, because by increasing biodiversity in your neighbourhood, you're helping the entire area as well as a beeline campaign, which aims to create these corridors all throughout Newcastle, 45 hectares of flower-rich grasslands back into the environment, which can only be a good thing. Now, a few days ago, Chris went out exploring and he went to a very special, very secret location because an animal there is going through a reintroduction project being put back from extinction. It's, of course, the northern pool frog.
The sun is shining in Norfolk. It's put a smile on my face and I've got up early to come to a top secret spot where one of Britain's most endangered amphibians lives. Well, it lives now because it's been successfully reintroduced. And I've come to meet a pretty special bloke too, John Baker, who's overseen the process. He's around here somewhere.
This is one of the ponds that we know there are pool frogs on. Looking for pool frogs is more like looking for reptiles than it is like looking for other amphibians. So we're essentially looking for animals basking in warm, sunny spots.
This is the site where the very last northern pool frogs lived in the wild before they became nationally extinct in the 90s. Now it's one of two sites where pool frogs have been reintroduced. That wasn't as straightforward as it seems, because there's pool frogs all over Europe. The question is, which pool frogs were the right pool frogs?
It's really important that we reintroduce northern pool frogs rather than southern pool frogs back into England.
Hold on. I'm going to interrupt you because they've started calling. What about that? Listen.
That's a male.
Look at that. What a handsome animal. And there's no mistaking it for common frog. That lime green stripe down the back is very prominent.
Absolutely, yeah.
Male northern pool frogs call during May and June to attract females to breed. They sound like they're a bit further out.
Yeah, the males tend to call from warm areas out in the middle of the pond rather than at the edge.
Oh, I can see the vocal sacs. Like a couple of little bubblegum blows.
Yeah.
In and out, in and out. That's fantastic. What's the plan then? The males go out and start vocalising in the sunshine. Where are the females?
The females tend to keep away from the male chorus areas until they're ready to mate, and at that point they'll move towards the calling males.
And they don't lay massive clumps of spawn like common frog, do they?
No, no. The spawn, it looks similar, but it's much smaller. So each female pool frog lays about half a dozen small clumps of spawn, and they're about the size of a walnut.
Since they were reintroduced in 2005, the population of northern pool frogs has been steadily increasing. But they still only exist in 2 pockets in Norfolk. I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but you've still got all of your frogs in 2 baskets, so surely the plan is for further reintroductions.
Yeah, absolutely. The challenge is, though, is they're quite fussy about their habitat, but they clearly love it at this site. But there's not many other sites in the country that are like this.
Yeah, a lot of hard work, and today we're enjoying the fruits of all of that effort, because listen to that. That is a beautiful thing. Hats off to everyone involved, seriously. Lovely sunny morning in a secret spot in Norfolk, and we've enjoyed what can only be described as a great conservation success, and we've been serenaded by the pool frogs. I love that. Delightful little amphibians, very pretty frogs, I have to say.
I love the vocal sacs.
I know.
They are so cool.
Really, really entertaining. And you know, I first heard about that site way back in 1973 from my biology teacher, John Buckley. It took me a long time to get there, but it was worthwhile. And credit where credit's due when it comes to conservation. A lot of people work really hard on that project, so I'd just like to thank them. Amphibian, Reptile and Conservation Trust, Norfolk Wildlife Trust, Anglian Water, Forestry England, Natural England, the Green Recovery Challenge Fund, and I'd like to add personally, all of the volunteers who no doubt worked hard, long hours in often pouring rain or baking hot conditions to make that happen. Salute you all. Thank you.
So many things rely on volunteers, don't they? So, yeah, big thank you to you. OK, let's check our live cameras. Let's have a look at our variety. We've got still such loveliness. And before you ask, Chris, we're not going straight to the nightjar because there are other varieties of nests available.
Are there?
Yes, there are.
Can't see
and
them.
so we're going to go straight to our barn owls. Let's have a look at our bar. They've got so big in there, haven't they? 5 chicks spreading out that it's actually quite difficult to tell the white feathers from the white side of the nest box.
That's the back of one of them with some sort of, you know,
it is. I mean, it
adult
looks like just
feathers
one's in
coming
there.
through,
but
isn't
I
it?
can tell you there are still 5 chicks in there. Let's have a look at them in the light, because they had a busy night last night. 22 feeds. Fantastic night for hunting. It was like a barn owl buffet inside. And with the light, look at that chick. You can really see the facial disc and developing beautifully. Then if we go inside, you can see that these chicks are preening each other. It's reciprocal preening, or allopreening we call it. And a paper published in 2015 by Swiss researchers in the Journal of Evolutionary Biology said that chicks are more likely to share food if they're preened by a sibling. And if you think about it, that makes so much sense, doesn't it? I mean, if you've got a sibling, you know that if you're nice to that sibling, when it's Easter time and they get loads of Easter eggs, they will share some of the chocolate. If you haven't been nice to them all year, you're not going to see any of it.
It wasn't like that in our house. My sister hogged all of the Easter eggs. I was never allowed to look in.
You probably weren't nice to her.
Or it could have been the other way round. So the barn owl's there with some allopreening. Let's take a look at our marsh harriers, because they haven't been quite as friendly. Oh, well, at the moment they are, all lying down in the evening. You can see that they've got their adult feathers coming through there. Very little down left on some of them. Not a lot of activity though, and in the case of the marsh harriers, as opposed to the nightjar, not quite so interesting. So let's see what they've been up to. They've been spending quite a bit of time hiding in the reeds. When it's been warm, they've been trying to stay out of the sun. But there's been plenty of food delivered. And unlike the barn owls, which have got a surfeit of voles, there's been a bit of friction in the marsh harrier nest. So here the largest of the youngsters takes a piece of partially eaten hair away from the female and wants to keep that to itself. But look, the little one has other ideas, and it comes in with a bruising left foot. Shoves it out of the way, and wait for this, look, kung fu. Oh yes, a bit of Mr. B. Lee there. Has a couple of goes. The older chick is not quite so accurate with its kicking, but unfortunately the food's fallen in the water. It's recovered, however, by the younger chick. A round of applause, no doubt, in many households, as we champion this little underdog, who then has the chance to feed on some of that meat. It doesn't look like there's a lot on there, but when you're that size, every little helps. Eventually it has its fill, and the other marsh harrier, the older one, takes what's left, and there's not much there, to be honest with you, so it's a Pyrrhic victory. And of course, after a good feed, it's time for a rest. All of the differences are forgotten, and they flop into a pile to await the next scrap over a scrap, or with a bit of wing stretching.
Oh, I love that. I love the fact that the little one won. And, you know, those harriers were kung fu fighting.
Yeah.
Those kicks were fast as lightning. Oh, little throwback to the 70s.
Carl Douglas, wasn't it? Mr. Carl Douglas.
That's going to be in everyone's head now, isn't it?
Not mine.
Now, are you going to be really, really nice to me for the next few days? Because I'm going to do some allopreening with you here. Because if you promise to be nice, if you don't have to preen me, I'll give you that. Then I'll give you another glimpse of the nightjar.
Oh, come on, let's go.
OK, come on, let's go. Let's have
Live.
a look at our nightjar.
Come
Check it.
on. Oh, look at that. Oh, the little peeping there. Peeping in the evening. We love a peeping in the evening, don't we?
Oh, that's
Oh,
it.
hold on.
That's the most
That was a bit short.
extraordinary bird. What?
You upset
want more? You want
millions
more?
of people.
OK. you've
People
got-
all over the UK, Australia, Antarctica,
Okay.
Uranus, the other side of the universe. I mean, you know, xenomorphs with acid for blood are now really upset because you've cut the cut. Let's have more.
OK, you've got to be nice to me for 3 days. I'll give you more.
Come
Here we go.
on. Oh, that's better. Oh, my goodness me. I can feel the power surge as people reach for their internet, logging onto the camera so that their eyes can't be torn from this picture of absolute avian excellence.
It just seems so happy with it. So that's what you call a confident bird, isn't it?
It's great, isn't it?
It's very sort of proud of itself. That's enough, though. That's enough. You can't have too much excitement in one day.
It's OK. I'm recording all of it. I'm going to be watching it long into the night. Let's go north to Yollo on the Isle of Mull, where hopefully things are a little bit more calm, not as fractious, not fighting over the live nightjar.
Yeah, very, very nice. Very nice, fair play, Chris. But up here on Mull, we deal with proper birds. We deal with eagles up here. And because all week we've been watching an eagle nest on the coast on the island. And Mull is well blessed with golden eagles. We have higher densities than almost anywhere else in the whole of Europe. 30 breeding pairs in all, and it's been stable for quite some time now. Of course, there's another species of eagle here too. A relative newcomer, been nesting on Mull for around 40 years, the white-tailed eagle. 22 pairs of those. And an old friend of mine, Dave Sexton, the RSPB Mull warden, well, he monitors these birds every year. And a week ago, I had the opportunity to go out and join him for one of his surveys. Come to a stop here now, Dave. Where's the nest? Where are you looking?
So this nest is on a sea cliff, and it's on a ledge, but kind of shielded by trees. Perfect, beautiful spot. Classic white-tailed eagle nest site. But there are some nest sites that I just can't see from land when I'm doing my monitoring. So I get to use a boat like this, a little bit closer than normal, just to try and find out how many chicks are in there.
I know you monitor white-tailed eagles closely every year here on Mull. How's it going this year so far?
It's going to be a tough year, I think. Most of May was terrible weather, cold, wet and windy. You wouldn't believe it today. But that has taken its toll on some nests, because it was exactly at the time when nests were hatching. And that's the biggest cause of death, is bad weather, just as they're coming out of the egg. So we've already had about 8 failures.
Have you? And that's out of what, just over 20 pairs?
Yeah, 22 pairs. So it's up. It's a higher failure rate than normal. Here he comes now. So here's the male coming in.
Oh, he's going to come in for a fish.
Wow.
Look at this. Talons down.
I never tire of this.
I know, look at that. Look at that. Into the wind as well, isn't he? Stalling into the wind.
Now, this will be interesting, because if he goes back to the nest, then absolutely there's chicks in there.
Yeah.
And here's the female coming now.
She's a lot bigger, isn't she?
Yeah.
She's a big bird.
Absolutely. Oh, my goodness.
Look at that. Oh, they just make it look so easy. Just pluck it off the water and off they go. So they're going to go back to the nest.
Let's see. Let's follow him.
OK.
So there's him going in now.
So you might get to see a chick now with a bit of luck. There was, I couldn't tell if it was 1 or 2. There was definitely one just before he landed. There's a bit of movement.
Yeah. That's all I need to know in a way at the moment, because when they fledge, then they'll be sitting along the cliff top, and it's easier to count how many chicks we've got overall. At this point, it's just enough for me to know there's chicks in there and they're doing well.
Do we know how they're doing UK-wide? Because I remember a couple of years ago, I think the figure was roughly 150 pairs. They were up as far as Orkney, I think, weren't they?
Still about 150 pairs at the moment. As far north as Orkney. And now, of course, some of the mull birds are going south to the Isle of Wight, because we're doing well enough in Scotland. And just as the Norwegians helped us with their birds, we can now help the English project. 1 or 2 have drifted back north, even to Scotland, but you know what? They've turned around and gone back south, because that is now home.
Do you know what? That is one of the most exciting things to happen in the conservation world for the last 10, 20 years. And the fact that we're going to get these impressive eagles, hopefully, in the south of England once more.
Yeah. We lost them once before. We're never going to let that happen again.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. Dave Sexton, I tell you what, the man is a legend, and it was brilliant to be on that boat with him and watch those eagles come down and take that fish. They are spectacular birds, they really are. They're eating fish there, of course, but they have a very varied diet. Not just fish, they'll take carrion, they'll scavenge, they'll take mammals, they'll take birds. At this time of year, they take quite a few goslings as well. This photo was taken in June last year by local naturalist Ewan Miles, and it shows white-tailed eagle with a Canada goose gosling in its talons. And Loch na Keil, which is literally a stone's throw away, is alive with goslings, not Canada geese, but greylag geese. Several adults bring these chicks together in a massive creche. And I bet most of you at home now are looking at this thinking, oh, isn't that beautiful, those lovely, fluffy little goslings. But you know what, I've got to be honest, I look at them and think, where's the white-tailed eagle? It's going to come along any minute now. I've seen it happen once, and it is spectacular, I tell you, spectacular. Now, ever since I was a little lad, knee-high to a grasshopper, I've been inspired by the natural world, and so have members of a birdwatching and community group called Flock Together. Now, they've written some beautiful poems about the birds they love.
Who am I? What do I do? I'm delicately covered in colour in a grey world. I'm both the same and nothing like you. I soar. I spend most of my time flying from my problems, still on the earth, not down to earth. I seem to talk less and fly more. Astounded by the brown wind, sort of ice-tinged state of the sky, I fly. Even on the days where I feel low. I take myself to the ends of the world, find myself reacquainted with the things that I know. I'm both here, there, and nowhere, so where am I? Who am I? I'm filled with memories, amazed by the places I've been, the nature I've seen, just to make up for the fact that I drift. Some days I'll sit by an empty window looking at birds thinking, when will I take flight? Swift's always in the sky, so when will I reach their height? In pursuit of the things that I want, in pursuit of the things that I need. Not necessarily insects, not wasps, hornets or bees, but just stillness. Because I spend all my time moving. But this stillness is evidence. Nature needs no improving.
Perched on a branch, clung to his bark. There's a bustle in rustling leaves. Got up, took flight, dressed head to toe in wind. You can't buy this kind of drip. It's bound to the rule of the sky, high above new developments, where things once shimmered, where things once sparkled. Don't know nothing more sweet. I don't want to come down from this unless to find a branch to beat. My song of existence, a song like this.
The kestrel, small but mighty, hovering in the sky with a quiet that could not be weighed. The wind beater, floating strong, cheating wind, blankets the breeze as if he has a parachute for wings. Marks his prey with a still eye. Still, I wonder how this hunt will favor. From 20 meters high, I watch the kestrel dive a great length. The kiss of death, a sterling display of stealth and strength. Feathers auburn, imitating autumn tones, flying into spring, making a home out of anywhere. I dare you to underestimate this noble nomad, master of skies, hunter on land. I venture into nature and reclaim the outdoors with a grasp on this landscape as I hover and soar.
I loved that. It was like a poetic, mindful moment, wasn't it? And it was created by members of a birdwatching group called Flock Together, which was created by these guys, Nadim and Ollie, who started it during lockdown to basically welcome people into nature that are generally underrepresented in the birdwatching world, which I think is really fabulous, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super important for us. Obviously, we all belong to and come from nature, and it was just massively important that Flock Together combated the underrepresentation of our community in that space, which includes black and brown people, of course, but also the barriers to nature are not just confined to where you're from, you're ethnically. It's also about knowledge. You don't have to be an expert in birds to be a part of Flock Together.
It's really about accessibility, you know. What we're trying to do is open up this space to people that have probably not seen it as a space for them. So, yeah, Flock Together's done an incredible job of doing that over the last 2 years.
I think it's great to break perceptions, because I think people think that they've got to have a certain level of knowledge before they can even go birding. But in fact, all you need is passion and that thirst for knowledge, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that thirst is really especially beneficial when it comes at an early age. You know, that really breeds the curiosity and allows a chance to nurture it over time, which is why we set up the Flock Together Academy as well, which is working with underprivileged kids within cities to just get them out into nature, enjoying it, and yeah, taking all the benefits that nature has to offer.
So if you've got a brand new birder, give me your top 2 tips.
Top 2 tips for me would definitely be have a curious mind. If you're interested in things, then birding is going to be for you. Also, patience. Please, you know, I think when you come with expectations, that's when more likely to be left disappointed.
It's not like TikTok, is it?
It's definitely not like TikTok. It's exciting, but not TikTok.
Yeah. Birding is very much about the journey and not the destination. But anyway, my 2 tips would be, I guess, go outside, number 1. Number 2, bring a friend.
And I've seen your numbers. I mean, it's been 2 years and you've got over 3,000 members, which is fantastic. What do you do with all those members?
You're right, it's a massive number and we definitely didn't expect it. But I think with our monthly walks, we capped the number till around 200. Because, yeah, between myself and Nadim, managing that many people is really quite challenging. I think safeguarding that many people is the biggest priority. But also, if you think about a lot of these people are first-timers in this space. 60% of people that come, it's their first time. So helping them understand how to respect the environment is really important as well.
And all the people that have come for the first time, what feedback did they give you? What benefits have they had?
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits is that typically a lot of our members come from the city, full of buildings, which will just kind of bounce your thoughts straight back to you. Whereas when you come to a space like this today, it's just amazing. It's just space and room for imagination and innovation in thought, you know?
Overwhelming calmness, right?
Exactly.
You know, the people come and that opportunity to really pause and gain that perspective that's so needed in this hectic life we all live right now.
We need to block out the noise every so often,
Of course,
don't we?
of course.
I mean, I think it is fantastic what you've done and it's been such a great success, and I really hope that it's inspired even more people to join your group and explore the benefits of nature. Fantastic stuff. Well, from 2 great role models to our very own role model for the future generation of young naturalists, Megs.
Oh, Michaela, that's so sweet. Thank you so much. Very nice. Obviously, you know, from my perspective, it takes a lot of people to come together and make a community. But the community is strongest when we've got that diversity of voices. Young people, whatever your background may be, nature is all inclusive and all welcoming. So it's for all to come and enjoy. So it's brilliant to see what Flock Together have achieved. Now, over the course of the last few days, I've been out getting to know the community, and around Newcastle there's a few amazing red-listed species, and back in 2018, having noticed just that, a few members got together to create the Wild West End, a group for everyone, neighbours, people on other streets, to come together to note down exactly where that wildlife was. So I met up with Phil Dayton and Ruth Hayward to figure out a little bit more about the community. You've created quite an amazing map of your neighbourhood.
What it's made up of is all of the sightings that residents sent us over 2.5 years.
OK.
And all of that information all then came back and we made this map.
It's like a neighbourhood safari.
It is,
Because over here you've got the swifts, you've got the house martins, and then you've got, you know, the hedgehogs and bats down this way. So it's a real great way of not only knowing where things are, but also knowing where things aren't.
Exactly. So, for example, in this bit of the terraces, it's very, very urban, very concrete, so there aren't hedgehogs. But then you'll find the hedgehogs are in the suburban area in Fenham. And that's also one of the areas where the swifts were, where we had the 1930s houses.
It was found that swifts particularly like the eaves of the early 20th century houses in Fenham. This inspired swift champions like Phil Dayton.
This whole community project, Phil, has been utterly amazing, but the swifts here, I've heard, are especially good, and you've taken part in counting all those numbers. Why did you decide to get involved in the project?
So I knew there was some sort of swift or house martin type bird around. So that summer they were screeching around the house, so I knew there was a nest somewhere, and I didn't know where it was. So that's all kind of the mystery of swifts.
Yeah, it's an iconic sound, isn't it? Once you hear it,
is.
That's it.
Once you sort of recognise what it is and it means something to you, you notice it all the time now. And especially since the Wild West End started, it's become like a new obsession, really. You know?
Yeah. So have you had much success with them around here yet?
So they have been prospecting up and down the side of the house. The far corner they started with.
OK, well, all I think that's left to do, to be honest, is see a swift. So if you could arrange for one to fly over any time about now, that'd be wonderful.
Maybe.
Maybe.
If you're lucky.
They're right overhead.
Oh, it's coming low as well.
They're like little torpedoes, aren't they? That is quite incredible. What a thing to come out and stand in your front garden and have this over your head. I mean, really. Now, Chris might have his nightjars, Yolo might have his eagles, but I have the swifts, and they are so incredible. When I went and spoke to Phil, he said that we might be lucky to see one, maybe two, but to have about 5 over our heads was really something remarkable. But sadly, they are in decline, like many of our wildlife species are. 58% since 1995, and for me, that's really concerning because I was born in 1995, I'm 27 years old, and to think that they've declined by 50% in my lifetime is something, to be honest, that's quite shocking. But there's always something that we can do to give our swifts a helping hand. And one of the ways we can do that is by implementing things onto our houses, because historically they would nest in the crevices and trees, but almost exclusively today, swifts are nesting in our houses. Now, if you've got a new build, what you could do is you could put in this roof tile, and this is a ventilation hood. And if I lift it up there, you can see the swift entrance. Swift goes directly into a nest box inside, and some housing authorities, one in particular in Newcastle, is implementing this every time, which is brilliant news and fantastic work. But if you already have a house set up, what you could do is implement a swift box. Now all you have to do is put this on the side of your house and make sure that it is in not direct sunlight, not near any trees, so that swifts have a good entrance in and out, and that essentially when they come out of the box they can go downwards into free fall, as they like to do so acrobatically, as we've just seen. But how do you know if you've got swifts around your houses? Well, you might hear this sound. Now have a listen. It's quite scratchy. It's a swift screaming party, as it's known. About 10 or 20 individuals gather together, and it's a good indication that if you hear this, the chances are you have breeding swifts in your area, which is lovely. And if you don't have breeding swifts in the area, you can even try playing that sound aloud to try and attract them in, and they'll come and prospect the area. Now it's time to head back down south to Wild Ken Hill in Norfolk, where Chris is. And Chris, I bet you're envious of my swifts. I know you've been trying to attract them to your garden for ages.
I have. I need to put up some more boxes, there's no doubt, and playing the calls of swifts can, you know, encourage them to take up residence in those boxes as well. You don't have to play them loud, so they won't upset your neighbours, but if you get a little MP3 player or whatever and stick it onto some speakers, that does help. Yeah, you're probably wondering why I've got a two-dimensional model of a very flamboyant caterpillar here. And that's because I want to talk to you about one of our rarest, largest and most beautiful butterflies, the swallowtail. Let's take a look at the adult before we get onto the larvae. Now, they are large, 9 centimetres from wingtip to wingtip. They are rare, known from only 17 sites in the east area of Norfolk. They need to live in fenland because their caterpillars only feed on one species of plant, the milk parsley. And obviously a lot of fenland's been drained, so that plant has lost its habitat. And even then, they're very particular. It needs to be tall, fresh milk parsley. And of course, in the past, when those fens were cut for reeds for thatching, there was probably a lot more of it. You can see these yourself. The adults are on the wing for about a week as an individual, but the flying season of the species is about 6 weeks. You can see them at Hickling Broad. We filmed those at Strumpshaw Fen. If you do go out, obviously behave yourself, be patient to catch a view of these beautiful insects. Now, I was talking about the milk parsley. The female lays 1 egg on each piece of milk parsley. That's to avoid competition, so that you're not competing with your own siblings if she were to lay more than 1 egg. It takes about 10 days to hatch, and when they first hatch, they look like bird poo. The first couple of instars, or the first 3 instars in fact, look like bird poo, and then the 4th instar, well, that molts into this monstrosity. Yes, it's a bit gaudy and colourful, isn't it? But it's gone from being completely camouflaged to very, very obvious, what we call aposematic warning coloration. So, it's then not hiding from predators. What happens if it's spotted by a predator and the predator approaches?
I'm a spotted shield bug.
That's one word for it. Yep. A spotted shield bug is approaching my swallowtail caterpillar. What do? Well, I confront you with my osmetrium. The caterpillar everts an organ from the top of its head, a bright orange organ which flicks up like this, casting into the air the smell of rotting pineapples. Rotting pineapples. Quite right. Let's have a look at the real caterpillar with its osmetrium everted. Now look, we don't know exactly how this dissuades predators from continuing their attack on the caterpillar, but what we do know is it must work. It's persisted in evolutionary times, and it's not just this one species of swallowtail which has this. It is in fact many of those species of swallowtail that we find across the world, all complete with their osmetrium. And I love flicking the V's, the orange V's at Michaela Strachan. Look at that. That's just great.
Squirting stuff in my face. It seems to be a running gag, doesn't it, honestly? But let's have a look at what happens, because I mean, the most incredible thing is when these turn into that beautiful butterfly. And we think this is something that might never have been filmed before, and it's filmed by Kevin Radley. And the butterfly comes out. Once it does, it is a showstopper. It's spent 8 to 9 months in that chrysalis, and it emerges, and it's such an incredible transformation. I know it's something we've all seen before, but really, I mean, seeing any butterfly come out of its chrysalis, I think is so magical. And then it dries off and it spreads its wings and flies.
Imagine how it feels. I mean, you could see the palpable relief on its face, couldn't you? I mean, and imagine you've been sort of naked in a tiny cardboard box for 9 months, and then you get to come out into the fresh air.
The last time I did that, it felt good.
Yeah. Well, I was the one who put you in the box. Very sadly, I mentioned that they are rare butterflies. They're not the only rare butterflies that we have. Butterfly conservation every year run the big butterfly count, gives us all a chance as citizen scientists to contribute to monitoring our butterfly populations, and we do so very accurately. It brings me absolute sadness to tell you that 50% of our butterflies in the UK are now red listed. And on the 25th of May, Butterfly Conservation published another report which said that within that 50%, the endangered status of some of the butterflies had been increased. So more of them are now threatened and near threatened than they were before. And what's really tragic is that here at Wild Ken Hill, they do a brilliant job of promoting the growth of plants providing nectar and the food plants for the caterpillars. I mean, there's masses of plants here. Yesterday, when we were out and about, moving around, I saw 7 butterflies in one day. Now, last year, the big butterfly count revealed the worst butterfly season ever. The way things are going, it could be even worse this year. And I don't know about you, but We speak so often now about the declines. Maybe we've become a little bit too complacent about this. It's really time to do something about it. Those verges mustn't be mown. The pollinators need them, just as Meg said. We've all got to do our bit before it really is too late.
Take a deep breath, I think. Time for a deep breath with that news, and time for a mindful moment, and time for us to enjoy the life in the brambles here at Wild Ken Hill.
All that life on brambles, the flowers producing nectar, the flowers later producing fruit that's fed on by mammals and birds. Please have a little bit of bramble in your garden or on your verge.
I'll tell you, that was a moment of calm, but we've got another moment of, well, we're not really quite sure, because we've been told to look at the live cameras with our buzzards, because something has happened in the nest. What have they got? They're eating something.
Can't see.
And
Hold
if
on,
we
hold on.
have a look at
Oh, it's the head. Hold on, that's the head of a mustelid. Look, you can see the ear. Oh, look.
And in fact, this is what they brought in seconds ago. Oh, my goodness. It's a stoat.
Honestly. Well, what a time to have to leave you, but I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Do join us tomorrow when we'll be bringing you more of the harriers. Yes, the harriers. Of course it is, the marsh harriers. We might sneak in a little bit of nightjar as well.
And I'll be up with the birds doing a spot of dawn chorus discoing.
And I'll be catching up with a king of birds, our nesting golden eagles.
Can you believe it? It's the last show tomorrow. We will be back at 8 o'clock, of course, and 1 o'clock, Chris and I will be talking to Hannah on Watch Out on our social media channels. Of course, we will be bringing you more nightjars, or shall we actually? Maybe we'll debate that. Anyway, please do join us tomorrow for our final show. We'll bring you plenty more exciting stuff. We'll see you then.
Nightjars.
Bye.
Nightjar. To find out more about uncovering urban wildlife and about how regenerative farming affects our countryside, go to bbc.co.uk/Springwatch and follow the links to the Open University.